Greetings, this is the Crunchy Fit, and this will be the finale of What If Female Deku was King Ghidorah. I had to go and look at the last part, because I didn't remember where we last left off with this. So, last we left off, the League of Villains started attacking the USJ. So, with that out of the way, we shall continue. So, Aizawa tells 13 to protect the children. Well, I mean, they're 18 right now. I said they were 18. So, but they're still technically children. I'm not sure. He said protect the students, as he then jumped down to fight the League of Villains. As Zuko and Bakugo's arrogance would begin to show through, as they would both yell, why are we just standing here? Does he think we're weak? As Izumi would say that Aizawa had left us here because he knew we were inexperienced. He knows our quirks are powerful, but he also knows that we don't have enough experience in using them. So it'd probably be best to stay up here and not get killed. As Rodin would say, Izumi's right. We have to stay up here in order for us to even make it to becoming heroes. As Bakugo and Zuko would say, that's a load of bull crap, and you know it. We are the strongest UA has to offer. As Izumi would say, really? 'Cause the score in the entrance exam and the quirk assessment test that we had say otherwise. The two of you are the fourth and fifth strongest. Rodin and I are the first and second strongest. Now, if you truly want to die so badly, then be my guest. Go ahead. As Bakugo would walk up to Izumi and grab her by her collar. Now, Izumi is basically towering over Bakugo. Izumi's definitely taller than Bakugo, so he grabs her by the collar as he says, "Are you looking down on me? I'll kill you." As Ni, would bite down Bakugo's arm, as this would cause enough pain for Bakugo to let her go. But she would say, "That's not really a smart move, Katsuki. And really saying you'll kill somebody, that's more or less a villain's behavior than a hero's one. If you truly want to be a hero, then I suggest you drop that attitude." Just as Izumi finished that sentence, 3 villains that had made it past Aizawa jump up and try to attack Class 1A, with Izumi basically sprouting 2 spectral golden wings, as these would blow the villains away, as these wings would then retract. As they would all then be separated as they were in canon, with Izumi and Rodin being placed in the city area. As a group of villains would begin to walk up to them, as not knowing their quirks, they would immediately go to attack them, with Izumi immediately unleashing her gravity beams at the villains, immediately hitting them, sending them flying backwards. As a Rodin would also be dealing with his villains. One villain who managed to get the drop on Izumi would try to attack her, and find that his attack phased through her, as knee would then grab him and then slam him into the ground. Sorry about that. Anyway, the attack phases through her as knee would grab him and slam him into the ground. As the villains are wondering, just who the hell is this girl? She's not even being phased by any of our attacks, and even if we do hit her, it just passes through her like it's nothing. As Izumi would then fire off her gravity beams, hitting all the villains in the area, as they would all collapse to the ground. As Izumi and Rodin would make it out of the city area and see that Aizawa is getting beaten down by the Nomu, as the Nomu is about to attack Su and Mineta. As Izumi would see this happen, as Izumi and would look to Rodin, as Rodin would look to Izumi, as they'd both nod, as they would then transform into the spectral version of themselves, which I said in the last part looked like a combination of the King of the Monsters ghidorah and the Planet Eater ghidorah. And Rodin's one looks like the one in King of the Monsters. Now, two of you who had pointed out, so yes, they sort of are like Kurama, the Kurama mode from Naruto, and the Susanoo. Yes, they're both like that, so they both still have their physical bodies, but surrounded by this spectral body. As Shigaraki would notice this, as he would think, no, this is cheating. They're cheating. As he's repeatedly scratching his neck again. As Izumi would fire off 3 gravity beams, as they would all hit the Nomu, as the Nomu was then being lifted up. As she would then summon the 2 of the dragon heads, Nea and Kevin. And yes, I'm still going with Kevin. Why? Because it's funny. Okay. As the Nomu would have been ripped in half by the 2 heads, but it doesn't leave. But no blood comes from it. Just spectral glistening comes from it. As each half is then taken into the low dimension that the heads reside in, as the body of the Nomu is then destroyed. As Izumi and Rodin Rodin this entire time had been dealing with other villains around the area, as Izumi would have dissipated the spectral body, as she would have landed on the ground, kneeling down to one knee from exhaustion. As Rodin would see this, as he'd immediately run to her and help support her, as the rest of the pro heroes arrive and the USJ incident concludes. Now we'll be moving on to the sports festival. Now, I'm not going to go in depth into that one, because it just goes the same as canon, apart from the the fights, which I will be covering here. As we get to the fights for the UA Sports Festival, I'll only be covering Izumi and Rodin's fights. As Hitoshi basically tries to brainwash her. That doesn't work. Izumi basically blasts Shinso with a gravity beam, hits him square in the chest as Shinso flies out of bounds, leading Izumi to be the victor. Next one would be Rodin versus... I'll say instead of Denki fighting Ibara, it's Rodin who fights her. As Rodin would basically create his spectral wings, as they're sort of like bat wings. So he would basically fly up into the sky, as Ibara would try to get him down. And when Ibara basically ended up grabbing him, Rodin had smirked, as he would have ignited the tips of his wings, which would have caused Ibara's vines to burst in flames. As Rodin would have basically created the spectral talons and basically pinned Ibara to the ground, leading Rodin to be the victor. Next fight is Izumi versus Todoroki. As Izumi would not be going all out on Shoto because she knows he'll be holding back during his fight. As Shoto would send an ice barrage, as Izumi would lift up one of her hands, as a gravity beam would come out, basically destroying it. Now, this is only about... Okay, so let me give her power level scaling. So right now, she is about at 2% of her... She's only at 25% of her full power when fighting Shoto, which I'm putting on the same level as King of the Monsters Ghidorah. At 50%, she is at Planet Eater Ghidorah's power level, but 100% she basically is full on Deity Ghidorah thing. Yeah, Deity Ghidorah, that's what I'm calling it. As Shoto would say, "Why the hell aren't you going all out? Did that old man bribe you so that I could win?" As Izumi would say, "I was bribed by nobody. I am doing this because your sorry ass won't get over something that happened in the past and won't use his full power. Because that quirk is not his. It is yours. Your power, your power, and it follows your rules, not his." As Shoto would then basically ignite, as he would then go all out on Izumi. As he'd send the ice barrage, as Izumi would then smile, as she'd then shift into the spectral body, which she destroys the ice barrage. As Shoto, she's basically in the middle head, so she's in the middle head. I was trying to remember the names, but I couldn't, I'm sorry. She was in the middle head, as Shoto would then fire that blast, as Izumi would then fire a full power gravity beam. As this would basically collide with Shoto's attack, as sort of like a Dragon Ball type of beam struggle would basically happen. As the struggle would keep going back and forth until Shoto's fire court side begins to overheat to where he stops the blast for about a second, which is all the time Izumi needs to push the thing all the way back and hit it, and cause it to hit Shoto, knocking him out of bounds and causing Izumi to be the victor. Next one is Rodin versus Zuko. Zuko gets his ass handed to him. Rodin wins. I'm not going to cover that because it's actually pathetic on how Zuko fights. Because, I'll basically put it this way: seeing Zuko fight Rodin was is basically like watching a toddler get bodied by a professional wrestler. That's basically, picture that, and then you have that fight. Yeah, it's not a pretty sight, is it? Anyway, continuing. As Rodin, as we then get to the fight of Izumi versus, Rodin versus Bakugo. As Bakugo would basically sort of like go with the same strategy as in his fight with Todoroki, with him launching the howitzer impact as Rodin was in his spectral body, which would send Rodin flying out, causing him, leading for Bakugo to be the victor. As basically that fight was not honorable at all. It was basically a slaughter that Bakugo was performing. As Izumi is basically pissed at this point, as she would go to visit Rodin in Recovery Girl's office before her fight, and when she is called out, she basically looks back at Rodin, who is unconscious, as she would say, "I'll win this fight for the both of us, and I will make sure he will never walk again." As she basically gives Rodin a peck on the forehead, as she would then head to her fight. With Bakugo being all arrogant, since he beat Rodin, he thinks he could beat Izumi easily. Yeah, that's... this is gonna be fun to do. As Bakugo would basically try to do the same strategy as he did to Rodin, which ended miserably, with Izumi basically bodying him in her spectral form, basically launching all 3 gravity beams at him. Now, let me give you the range of the gravity beams. Okay, so 1 gravity beam is enough to knock somebody out. 2 gravity beams is enough to take out Rodin. 3 gravity beams is to basically paralyze somebody if there's no recovery quirks around. As Izumi would fire off a paralyzation, her 3 gravity beams, Bakugo realized he messed up, as he would have been hit directly, as he would have been knocked down. As when he tried to get up, he realized that he couldn't move his arms. As he would try to get up, he realized that his arms were still attached, it's just that he couldn't move them. As when Izumi gets out of a spectral form, as Bakugo would say, "What, you think you're looking down on me just that I can't move my arms?" As Izumi would say, "No, I'm not looking down on you. This fight is already over. There's no point in beating somebody who's already down." As she would then turn around and walk off the stage, which, due to Bakugo still standing, would immediately disqualify her from the fight, making Bakugo the winner. And some of you might be wondering, wait, why is Izumi walking off the stage? Couldn't she beat Bakugo at this point? And doesn't she sort of have the same personality as Ghidorah? I'm going to give you this. She was raised by one of the most honorable heroes out there, Ryuko. She is not going to beat somebody when they're down, or basically have no use in their limbs. And plus, she prefers to leave that lasting effect on Bakugo, to where he knows that he stood no chance against Izumi in that fight. And if Izumi was not like she was now, Bakugo would have been dead, figuratively. As we then cut to the awards being given out, as Bakugo's arms are no longer paralyzed. As Bakugo still goes through the same thing as he did in canon, where he is still unwilling to accept the gold medal because he didn't earn it. As that's the end of the sports festival. Stain arc, that sort of goes the same. Yeah, I'm sort of skipping past most of the arcs so I can get this done. Anyways, continuing. So, we then go to the forest training camp arc. With now at this point, Rodin and and Izumi's relationship has gone serious. There are like some of the people in class 1A do know that they're dating, and by some people I mean people who are very close friends to them. So no, Zuko and Bakugo don't know they're dating. And Bakugo is thinking they could arrange a marriage with Izumi. He's not wanting to arrange a marriage with her because he loves her. He wants to arrange a marriage with her because he wants to cuck out Rodin and just marry her for the money. Now Reiko does know that Izumi's dating Rodin, and Rodin has been given Reiko's blessing to marry Izumi in the future. As we then get to where they were Wild Pussycats show up. They then send them off the cliff, explaining everything. Izumi and Rodin shift into their spectral forms, grab everybody in the friend group except for Bakugo and Zuko, and they then fly to the camp and then rest up as Zuko and Bakugo would arrive at the camp a few hours later, completely exhausted. As stuff would happen in canon, quirk training, yada yada yada. Look, I'm sorry if it's not going much in depth. I just want to get this out of the way so I can start other stuff, because those of you who had looked, I asked for a link poll, so I wanted to have a space there in case either I want to do another what if or I wanted to do the link one. Okay, so let's get this up. Let's keep going. League of Villains attack. Izumi basically paralyzes Muscular. Yeah, she basically full-on paralyzes him from the waist down. Muscular can't move at all. Nor can he use his quirk anymore because Izumi basically disabled that part of his brain. Now, I'm not sure how quirks actually activate, so I'm thinking like it's sort of like a evolutionary thing to where like it's a part of their brain. So Izumi basically just deactivated that permanently. So Muscular is basically quirkless. As Muscular would have been arrested, and Bakugo and Zuko would have been captured. Full-on rescue mission happens. Izumi and Rodin is going with it, not because he likes Bakugo and Zuko, but because he knows that Izumi will give him an earful if he doesn't go to rescue them, because that's not what heroes would do. As same stuff happens in canon, Izumi and Rodin end up rescuing Bakugo and Zuko, and All Might's fight with All For One goes relatively similar, with All Might losing his quirk. Now I'm going to say that it's Mirio who got One For All. So yeah, Mirio got One For All. As we then cut to Bakugo's fight with Izumi, yada yada yada. Bakugo thinking he ended All Might, expressing how he feels useless compared to Izumi, yada yada yada. Fight ends, Izumi and Bakugo go under house arrest for a bit, and that concludes Season 3. On to Season 4! Anyway, we then pick up at the Overhaul arc, with Izumi and Rodin taking Sir Naitai's internship on Reiko and All Might's request due to them basically being super powerful and OP. As when Izumi basically catches Naitai off guard one time, he basically throws like one of his weighted stamps at her, as it completely phases through her. As Naitai asks her, why did that phase through her? As Izumi basically explains that a while ago, she had made an amulet, and whoever wears this amulet basically causes her to be immune to it, because they are her tie to any injury. So if they sustain an injury, then Izumi will sustain an injury. But if Izumi is attacked, then the attack won't phase, won't injure her or nor the person wielding the amulet. As Night Eye would ask, then who's wielding the amulet then? As Izumi would say, well, currently it's Rodin. As Night Eye would say, what do you mean currently? As Izumi would basically explain that every now and then she changes it to a different person. So it's basically a different person every time. So people won't really notice the pattern because she changes it randomly. As Night Eye would completely understand this, as we then get to the Overhaul raid arc. With Overhaul's men basically being defeated like they were in canon. Overhaul Muriel won't lose his quirk this time because Izumi blocked the bullet with her spectral arm. No, not spectral arm. Spectral wing. As she'd fire a gravity beam, 2 gravity beams off, one hitting Shisaki's subordinate with the gun, and then one hitting Shisaki. With Shisaki basically not being able to even get Izumi up to her full power. As the only person who currently is capable of doing that right now is Rodin. As Overhaul would then be taken into custody, and the League of Villains won't really attack Overhaul because the raid happened earlier before Shigaraki could make the deal with him. As they then do the UA Festival, Airy Smiles, songs, yada yada yada, as that brings Season 4 to an end. And like I said before, I won't be covering Season 5 because 1, I haven't seen it yet, and 2, I'm waiting for that season to be over for me to cover it. Because I can't really cover something without a complete season, because that wouldn't really make any sense. Anyway, cutting to the future, Izumi is currently the #1 hero in the world now. And I think her hero name was Queen Ghidorah. As she would have married Rodin, Bakugo would have tried to get the arranged marriage thing working, but that immediately backfired, and news about that would have spread like wildfire, dropping Bakugo's hero ranking from, I'll say he was the #3 hero at the time, from #3 all the way down to number 17. No wait, not number 17, number 53. As Zuko would still remain in the top 2, would still be number 200. And Rodin would be either #2 hero, as they would have 2 children, each of them with respective parts of their parents' quirk. And anyway, that's where I'm going to end this off. I'm sorry if I didn't go into detail with this, I just wanted to get this over and done with. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time. Ta-ta!